Hello and welcome to the channel. Today what we're going to talk about is 5 videos from 2022 from my channel that I feel you should check out. Let's go. Alright, so why this video? So it's pretty popular. I've done it in the past, especially on my blog, about doing like year in review. And what I decided to do this year was a little bit different and just showcase 5 videos from the past year that I think you should be aware of. Now, these videos, like what's the criteria for these videos? They may not have had the most views, but in my opinion, they represent areas that people should be aware of. And I feel like when people are in technology and the IT field in general, awareness is kind of a key ingredient to success. You don't need to know everything or be an expert in everything, but having specific awareness of different technologies, different techniques has always been instrumental in growing my career. And so if nothing else, this should hopefully give you some visibility into some areas that you want to further investigate. And lastly, I want to thank everyone for tuning in over this past year, viewing content, adding likes, subscribes, etc. And look forward to providing more content in 2023. So if you're not subscribed, please do go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump into it. Alright, so no particular order. These are the videos I'm going to talk about, and I'll go through each one individually, but this will just give you a little visibility. We're going to talk about some RPA, we're going to talk about Power Automate, a little bit of Power Virtual Agents, and a little bit of hybrid of Logic Apps and Power Automate itself. So in no particular order, number 1, automating PowerPoint presentations using Power Automate Desktop. And so the question you might be asking is, okay, why? So this one was actually, I had a request. I had someone reach out and they were trying to like automate PowerPoint content creation. They were essentially supporting like a marketing basically function, and they wanted to have like a sort of a library of slides that they could then automate the generation of like a deck that would be tailored towards specific needs and be able to pull specific slides from this library. And so I was particularly intrigued by this use case, and I felt it was kind of a good art of the possible video with Power Automate Desktop. And I think what it does is it really highlights that if you can manually repeat steps in a consistent manner, you can go ahead and build an RPA bot. And so that's how I really approached this problem. There was no sort of APIs I could use inside of Power Automate, but if I went ahead and systematically used gestures through, say, the keyboard or through the menus, and I could then just replicate those steps over and over, I could actually go ahead and achieve this. So it was actually quite fun to put this one together. I did kind of learn a lot about it, and then in general, it just sort of highlights that you could do this with a lot of things. If you do have those RPA capabilities and the tooling itself. So this one was fun. Next, let's jump into some Logic Apps Standard and connecting Logic Apps Standard to a VNET. And so why am I including this one? I get questions about VNET connectivity pretty much weekly. And so oftentimes I'll refer to this video when I get asked internally or questions from the field about VNET connectivity. It's super important, VNET connectivity. It's a big differentiator between consumption Logic Apps and Standard. And I would also add it's a pretty big differentiator between Logic Apps Standard and Power Automate as well, because of this inherent connectivity to local or other cloud networks. And I think it's really essential in hybrid integration scenarios as well. So when customers might have, say, BizTalk interfaces and they want to start to move those into the cloud, naturally there's going to be that question about network connectivity, and this is one of the ways that you can go ahead and solve it. So once again, pretty important. And I forgot to say this, but if you're looking for the links, all of these videos will be linked in the description, so go ahead and find them in that way. Next up, checking out the new Power Virtual Agents experience. So I still have a soft spot for Power Virtual Agents. I've spent kind of 2 years previously, working closely with that team on the CAT team, and it's been exciting to see where these investments have been made. A lot of this was kind of things I was aware of in the background, And then, it's always once they are available, it's pretty cool to go ahead and see the vision realized and see just how much work had gone into these investments. And what's pretty cool about the new experience is that there used to be some, semi-complex scenarios that would require the Bot Framework Composer or the Bot Framework SDK in order to accomplish. So things like adaptive cards and bringing sort of more immersive experiences to the chat canvas. That was, harder or would take longer to go ahead and achieve. Now it's quite simple and available right out of the box, which is great. So I do encourage people to continue to learn about PVA. Maybe you don't have those requirements right now, but you could in the future. So once again, go ahead, try it. They're very flexible with their trial licenses. You can continue to basically enable those and sort of learn this technology and go ahead and become proficient in it. And when you do have those conversational AI use cases, you've got some foundation there. So go ahead and check that one out as well. Next up, Azure Logic App Standard, built-in versus Azure connectors. This is another one where if you're coming from the BizTalk world, you're trying to understand what is the difference between Logic App Standard and Azure and Logic Apps consumption. This is sort of, connectors is like a big part of that. And built-in connectors are in your runtime of your Logic App Standard instance. They sometimes behave a little bit differently than the Azure or the managed connectors, but they're highly advantageous for you from a throughput perspective. Also, we talked about VNET before. That's another key capability as well. And so just understanding those differences is quite important if you're building out Azure integration services. Logic Apps consumption's been around for more than 6 years, and Standard's been around for more than a year in GA, but still there's a lot of gaps in terms of knowledge. So go ahead and do some upskilling in that area if you haven't already. And then last but not least, Azure Logic Apps and Power Automate differences. Now I've put this as part 1. There's a part 2. I still need to build on this library. There's probably a couple more I can make as well. And I built this video or the series just because these questions continue to arise, both internally and as I spoke at a couple conferences this past fall. I felt it was just worth it to put this together. And, there is some content that's out there, but I feel like it's out of date. And generally, there's comparisons between Logic Apps consumption and Power Automate. And those are quite similar, actually. But where there's some very more significant differences is in Logic Apps Standard. And so the goal of this series is not to pit one versus the other. I don't feel like it's a competition. I think it's more about education. I like both services. I think both services have their place in the enterprise. And for here, it's really just about education and helping people understanding the differences so that they could choose the right one based upon their requirements. And once again, always start from your requirements because there are some subtleties and or nuances, and being able to map them against requirements is the best way to go about this. So that's the last but not least video, and go ahead and check that one out. So once again, thank you for everyone who's watched the channel over the past year. If you haven't gone ahead and subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And above all, have a great 2023. And I'm looking forward to providing more content. I'll continue to try to do that weekly. And have a great start to your 2023. Thanks again for checking out this video. If you're not following me on Twitter, go ahead and find me at Weirzy. And you're on YouTube, so likes, subscribes, comments, always welcome. Thanks, and take care.